So it is exactly 2:3 a.m. You are stepping onto the last bus
Oh,
home.
the worst time to be on public transit.
Literally the worst. And the fluorescent overhead lights are emitting this like sickly, relentless humming noise. You flash your pass, but the driver absolutely refuses to look at you.
It just completely ignores you.
Yeah, completely. You walk down the aisle, and the only other people on board, I think there are 6 of them in total, are sitting in dead silence. Their heads are bowed so low you can't even see their faces.
Which is deeply unsettling on its own.
Right. Like, if this were just a standard late-night commute, it would be creepy.
Mm.
But in the story we're looking at today, this scenario is, it's far more than a creepy ride home. It's actually a symptom of complete irrevocable psychological collapse.
It truly is. We're looking at an environment that systematically just strips away every anchor a human being uses to understand their place in the world.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone. Today, we are taking you into the eerie, isolated world of a short, super atmospheric piece of fiction titled The Midnight Route to Nowhere.
It's quite the read.
It really is. We've got a stack of excerpts from this haunting text, and our mission today is to look far past the surface level scares. We are going to dissect the chilling psychological symbolism behind the protagonist, Ethan, and really explore what his terrifying journey represents about the human experience.
Because there is a lot of heavy psychology layered into this horror.
So much. Okay, let's unpack this. Let me just set the scene for you using specific details from the text. So Ethan boards this bus at exactly 2:4 a.m. And right from the jump, we're confronted with this intense social severance. Like we said, the driver ignores him, and the passengers are motionless.
And that boarding sequence is vital, honestly. It establishes the precise mechanism of Ethan's isolation.
What do you mean?
Well, in sociology and psychology, we understand that human identity is largely maintained through a process of social reflection.
Right.
We know who we are, and we know that we exist because other people react to us.
Right, like a nod or a smile.
Exactly. A nod, a glance, maybe a spoken word. These are micro-confirmations of our reality. So when Ethan steps onto that bus and the driver purposefully looks right through him, the author isn't just, like, establishing a spooky mood.
They're doing something deeper.
Right, the author is depicting social death. Ethan is stepping across a threshold where his existence is just no longer being ratified by the external world.
Wow, social death. That makes perfect sense. I mean, boarding late-night transit already feels like entering a liminal space, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
You're in a machine designed to hold 50 noisy, bustling people, but it is completely hollowed out. It smells like old vinyl and ozone, and you just feel entirely disconnected from the daytime world.
You're in a void.
Right. But what you're saying is that the text takes that everyday liminal feeling and totally weaponizes it. Like, the driver's refusal to engage is the first cut in severing Ethan's ties to reality.
Precisely. And that severance is compounded by the posture of the 6 other passengers.
The bowed heads.
Yeah, the text explicitly notes that their heads are bowed. They aren't reading, they aren't sleeping. They're displaying a posture of complete and utter submission.
Oh, like they've just given up.
Yes. Psychologically, this mirrors a state of learned helplessness. These are entities that have endured a prolonged stressor and have simply stopped trying to escape. They represent a collective surrender.
Man, so it's not just a quiet bus. It is an environment where the complete loss of human agency is the baseline norm.
Exactly. They aren't traveling toward a destination. They're just existing in a void.
And that void sets a really chilling precedent. Ethan is stepping into a space where giving up is the expected behavior.
The threshold of those bus doors is basically the boundary line between the dynamic human experience and a terrifyingly passive state of non-existence.
Okay, so when our social reality breaks down like that, I feel like human instinct is to look out the window, right? To ground ourselves in physical geography.
We look for landmarks, yeah.
But when Ethan tries to do that, the physical world completely abandons him too. The text notes that as the bus moves, the empty highway outside never changes. He watches the exact same broken streetlight pass his window over and over and over again.
A literal loop.
Yeah. And he checks his phone, zero signal, obviously. And when he opens his GPS app to figure out where he is, the screen doesn't even show a map. It just displays a single word in capital letters, L-O-T.
What's fascinating here is how the text uses external geography to map an internal psychological state.
Yeah.
We're looking at a complete spatial and sensory loop.
Okay, but let me challenge that for a second.
Sure.
Because when I read that the GPS suddenly flashes the word lost, I have to admit I rolled my eyes just a little bit.
You thought it was cliche.
Yeah, it feels like such a cheap horror trope. We see the no cell service or failing technology gimmick in almost every cabin in the woods slasher movie just to isolate the victim.
To force the plot forward.
Yeah. Right. So is the author actually doing something deeper here with the GPS, or are they just turning off the Wi-Fi to keep Ethan trapped on the bus?
Well, that is a very fair critique of the genre,
Yeah.
honestly. But I would argue the author is subverting that trope brilliantly here.
Okay, how so?
Well, if the GPS simply said no signal, you would be absolutely right. That's a mechanical failure. But the device doesn't fail mechanically. It changes its function entirely. It gives an ontological verdict.
An ontological Wait, explain that.
Think about it. A GPS relies on a network of satellites in orbit, right? It is the ultimate tool of objective cosmic reality, looking down and pinpointing your exact location on Earth.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, so for that specific objective tool to abandon its map and just scream, lost, it signifies the total collapse of Ethan's internal compass. It means the universe itself has lost track of him.
Oh, man, that completely changes the weight of that detail. It is not a dead battery. It's the technology confirming that he has been untethered from reality itself. And that repeating broken streetlight out the window, it creates this agonizing illusion of forward motion. The engine is rumbling, the tires are moving, but he is completely stuck.
He's going nowhere.
It's like the geographical equivalent of running on a treadmill in pitch darkness.
And that is a perfect metaphor for the mechanics of trauma and rumination.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, when a human mind undergoes severe psychological stress, it frequently falls into neurological loops. The brain constantly revisits the site of the trauma, spinning its wheels, burning immense energy, but making zero forward progress toward healing.
So the bus ride is the trauma loop.
Yes, the external environment of this bus, the repeating streetlight, the endless highway, it's a physical manifestation of a mind trapped in a destructive feedback loop.
Which means the environment is inherently hostile to his sanity. And when the external world, the geography, the technology, offers absolutely no grounding, we instinctively turn to the people immediately around us for social cues.
We look for validation.
Right, like we look for someone to make eye contact with, someone to validate that, yes, the situation is crazy. But when Ethan turns back to the interior of the bus for that grounding, things escalate from psychological dread to outright terror.
Because the environment within the bus finally activates. The passive threat becomes active.
Yes. The text shifts focus to the back row. An old woman sitting in the shadows slowly raises her head. Her eyes are completely black, and she whispers to Ethan, "You shouldn't have taken this bus."
Such a great line.
And before he can even process that warning, every single passenger lifts their head in absolute unison. The text says, none of them had faces, only darkness.
Pure nightmare fuel.
And then the bus slams to a halt in the middle of a dead forest. The doors hiss open, and the driver finally speaks, saying, "Last stop." Everyone gets off.
This is where the narrative shifts from the terror of isolation to the terror of confrontation. But we really have to look closely at what is actually confronting him.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the text explicitly points out that when these faceless passengers stand up, they do not walk toward the open doors to get off at this supposed last stop.
No, they don't.
They pivot, and they walk slowly down the aisle toward Ethan.
And this raises a super important question regarding the nature of the threat the protagonist is facing.
Because it's not normal.
Right. In traditional horror, the monster is a predator. The threat is physical violence, bodily harm, being eaten, being killed. But the mechanism of horror on this midnight route is far more insidious.
Because it is not a predator-prey dynamic at all, it feels much more like a psychological infection.
Yes, exactly.
By erasing their faces, the author strips away the very mechanism of human mirroring we talked about earlier. Like, we rely on the micro-expressions of others to confirm our own emotional state.
We need faces to read the room, so to speak.
Without those faces, Ethan isn't just facing a group of monsters. He is plunging into total sensory and social deprivation.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it. The darkness where their faces should be represents the complete erasure of the self. The threat moving toward Ethan isn't physical destruction, it's assimilation.
Assimilation into the void.
Right. If he allows them to reach him, he will be hollered out. The horror here is ego death. He will lose his identity, his memories, his agency, and he will simply become another blank, bowed entity sitting in the dark.
It's like how apathy spreads in a crowd. If you sit on a bus and ignore a crisis, if you surrender your agency to the bystander effect, you eventually become part of the void yourself.
You become infected by the environment.
And Ethan seems to intuitively grasp that this is an existential threat to his soul, not just his body, because his reaction is incredibly visceral. He doesn't try to fight them like you would a normal monster.
No, fighting wouldn't work.
Right. He screams, kicks out the emergency window, and literally throws himself blindly into the dead forest just to break the loop.
His survival instinct overriding that learned helplessness at the absolute last possible millisecond.
It's so intense.
It takes a monumental act of physical violence against the environment, literally shattering the glass to break the psychological loop.
And physically, the escape works. The text tells us that when he hits the ground and looks back, the bus is simply gone, vanished.
As if it was never there.
Exactly. The next morning, the police find him unconscious on the shoulder of an abandoned road. The investigation reveals no tire marks in the dirt, no broken glass, no evidence that a bus was ever there.
So from a purely objective law enforcement standpoint, the events of the previous night just did not happen.
Except, and this is key, except for one tiny, crucial physical anomaly.
A ticket.
Yes, the police find a single item in Ethan's pocket. It's a faded bus ticket. And printed across the front are 3 words, one way only.
So creepy.
And the text doesn't let him off the hook there. It ends by revealing that from that day forward, every single night at exactly 2:13 a.m., Ethan hears the heavy diesel engine of a bus idling outside his bedroom window.
He never truly escapes.
Right. He hears the pneumatic doors hiss open, and a voice whispers through the dark, "Your seat is still waiting."
A truly chilling conclusion that absolutely refuses to offer any easy catharsis.
So what does this all mean? How do we interpret this physical evidence bridging the gap into the real world in this relentless nightly haunting? Because, he physically shattered the glass and got away, but psychologically the text is telling us he didn't escape at all.
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to unpack the mechanism of that one-way-only ticket.
Okay, what does the ticket represent?
A ticket is essentially a contract. It grants passage, sure,
Yeah.
but it also signifies consent to the journey. The words one-way only represent the absolute permanence of a profound choice.
Oh, wow.
Ethan managed to hurl his physical body out of that environment, but symbolically, his psyche has been irrevocably altered by whatever this midnight route represents. You just cannot unsee the void.
You can't put the genie back in the bottle. And that daily 2:13 a.m. haunting, hearing the doors open, hearing the whisper that his seat is waiting, is such a brilliant illustration of how trauma functions neurologically.
It is a textbook manifestation of a post-traumatic stress loop.
How so?
The brain is incredibly efficient. When it experiences profound threat, it carves a deep neural pathway designed to anticipate that threat returning. So even when the person is safely in their bedroom, the brain expects the bus to arrive.
It's waiting for the danger.
Exactly. The whisper of "your seat is still waiting" isn't just a ghost. It is the brain's dark, almost addictive pull back toward unresolved trauma. The mind sometimes actually wants to get back on the bus to try and solve a puzzle it fundamentally cannot win.
Man, that observation takes the horror completely out of the supernatural realm and places it right in our own living rooms.
It really does.
I want you, as you are listening to this right now, to consider how this story operates as a metaphor for the indelible marks left by our own darkest moments. We all have metaphorical midnight routes we've taken.
Absolutely everyone has one.
Maybe it was a deeply toxic environment we stayed in far too long, or a destructive habit we couldn't break, or a pivotal, regretful choice we made when we were profoundly isolated.
Choices that slowly strip us of our identity, piece by piece, until we barely recognize the face in the mirror.
Yes. And even when we finally muster the sheer willpower to smash the glass and jump out, even when we physically remove ourselves from that toxic job or that destructive relationship, the psychological echoes of that trauma do not just magically evaporate.
No, they linger.
They really do. The anxiety, the rumination, the temptation to fall back into old, destructive patterns because they feel familiar, they wait right outside our doors in the quietest hours of the night. Your seat is still waiting is the magnetic pull of apathy.
And it underscores the realization that overcoming trauma isn't a singular event. It isn't just the dramatic leap through the window. It is an environment you have to continuously, actively choose not to re-enter every single day.
It's a daily choice.
Right. Ethan has to lie in bed at 2:13 a.m. and consciously ignore the open doors. The battle wasn't won in the forest. The battle is enduring the nightly invitation to give up his agency all over again.
The maintenance of survival. That is a heavy, incredibly demanding reality. But it is such a masterful use of the horror genre to explore the mechanics of the human condition.
It's brilliant writing.
It really is. The Midnight Rit to Nowhere is vastly more than a spooky ghost story. Ethan's terrifying ride is a masterclass in the symbolism of social isolation, the neurobiology of losing your direction, and the enduring, echoing nature of our darkest choices.
It just forces the reader to confront the terrifying fragility of their own identity and how quickly we can become the faceless passengers if we surrender our agency to the void.
But before we officially wrap up this deep dive, I know you caught one final, subtle detail regarding the physical evidence the police found. Something that completely reframes the timeline of this trauma.
Oh, yes. And it is a detail that fundamentally shifts the entire narrative if you apply it to the mechanics of trauma we've been discussing. I want to leave you with this final, unsettling thought to ponder on your own. The text specifically notes that the one-way only ticket found in Ethan's pocket was not newly printed. It was faded.
Wait, faded? Which means it has been subjected to time and wear.
Exactly. Think about the implications of that physical decay. Why would a ticket he supposedly just purchased that very night be faded and worn?
Oh my God.
Does this imply that this wasn't actually Ethan's first time taking this midnight route? Perhaps the reason his seat is still waiting is because it has always been his seat?
A cycle.
Yes. Is Ethan trapped in a much larger, horrifying cycle of boarding the bus, succumbing to the trauma, losing his memory of the event, escaping into the dead forest, and waking up by the side of the road, only to eventually board it again?
That makes the GPS reading lost so much more devastating. He's not just lost geographically, he is lost temporally. He is trapped in a multi-generational loop of his own making, continuously forgetting the lesson and reliving the terror.
The ticket is faded because he has been carrying the weight of this journey for a very, very long time.
Well, I am absolutely going to be thinking about that temporal loop tonight at 2:53 a.m. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration encourages you to keep questioning the deeper mechanics behind the stories you encounter, to look for the psychological truths hiding behind the monsters. And remember, next time you step onto transit late at night, make sure the driver looks at you. And maybe just double check that the route you're trusting to take you home isn't actually a one-way ticket to nowhere,